Welcome in, I'm Dirt Farmer. This is our family farm out here in Montana, and this week we should be finishing up seeding and moving on to the next project. We just got this guy loaded up, so now we're gonna head out and go get started on that last field. And we're just cruising by the pivot there, but you can actually kind of see it that some of the spring wheat's actually already starting to pop out of the ground, and we seeded that, what, a week ago or a week and a half ago, something like that. We just got done with the last live stream with the John Deere air seeder, maybe for the year here. However, we are having a couple issues. So I was actually talking about this during the live stream, just too much product going through these hoses and plugging things up. So this run is plugged up, but it's not from being too muddy. It's just from the product kind of getting stuck in there. So you can see we got our peas and our fertilizer just jammed up in here. So it's pretty simple. All we have to do is kind of dump this thing out, clear it out, then we'll get it hooked back up again. But it's actually kind of jammed in there, so it's not even coming out very well. After I get everything hooked back up, I always like to just double check it and make sure we actually have air coming out of this thing. So right now I can feel the air coming out of here, which means we're not plugged up anymore. Yeah, it was just this one right here. You can see we got it all hooked back up, ready to go. And that's what I talked about during the stream. Sometimes you're just going a little bit too fast and there's just a little bit too much material going through the air seeder itself, and it just plugs things up. We were so close to getting finished on this field here. You could see we literally have like 3 very short passes left and then the ends. However, we're kind of low on seed. We do have a little bit left in the front tank here, but then on the middle tank here, we are pretty much just about out. So we are gonna have to get a little bit more seed, and we did want a little bit extra for some of those water holes over there on the other pivot, just in case they dry out, we can seed them as well too. So just depending on how far I actually have to go to get seed is going to depend on if we still get done today or not. If it's pretty close, we will still probably get done today. If it's a long ways I got to go, then we're probably not going to get finished today, type of thing. After 6 o'clock, but we did finally get our seed, so hopefully we're gonna get this thing finished tonight, and we're gonna try something a little bit different here. So instead of running 2 tanks, just because it's a little bit harder when we're just using a little tiny bit of seed, we're gonna try using just the 1 big tank just to make it a little bit easier. However, we're still shooting for that 180, so we're gonna have to change a couple settings, and I'm gonna show you guys how I do that. First thing we wanna do, we're gonna shut off the middle tank. We don't need that one on anymore. And then we're actually gonna go to our meter here. We're gonna go front, peas, medium yellow, rate is 116. And we want this at 180 now, so we're gonna just type in 180. And then this little number down here, the transmission number just changed. It was 40 before, and now it's 63. And I'll show you guys what we have to change out on the cart now. We're back here by the cart now, and like I said, we're gonna be changing the front tank here. So we're just gonna be looking at this one right here. We do have 3 of these for each tank as well. So the computer told us about 64, however, I'm gonna probably run about 62 just because this one was supposed to be set at 40, but we did go down just a little bit because it was seeding just a tiny bit too much. We got this thing set to about 62 now, so it should be pretty close to 180 pounds per acre, but we'll kind of see if it even works. So that's why I didn't actually load up those peas in the tank yet, because I do just want to make sure the meter can actually handle 180 pounds of product going through it before we fill this thing up completely full. with finishing up this headland. As soon as we pull this thing out of the ground here, that is going to be a wrap on seeding 2023 for this spring. And we are still going to have a little bit of some reseeding to do. However, all the main fields are now done, so that's what we always consider done for the year type of thing. We did get done seeding a little bit early, but that doesn't mean we're actually done for the day. So our sprayer does need to have water for spraying, so that's what I'm doing right now, is just getting the water tanks filled. It's about 9 o'clock, so yeah, like I said, not gonna be any earlier quitting tonight, even though we did get done seeding. But along with filling up the waters, we are getting this absolutely gorgeous sunset yet again. It's one of the best things about working late is you are kind of out here, so you do get to see that sunset. We finished up seeding last night, however, we're still just about out in the same field. But today we're working on pivots, and we have got a little bit of some work to do on these things. And if you guys don't remember, we are on the south pivot right now. So what we're actually in right now is that spring wheat field that we double seeded. And then right next to us right there is the peas that we actually got done seeding last night. Our spring wheat is looking really nice though. You guys actually probably see all the green out there because yeah, it's this half pivot is what we have in spring wheat here. And you can actually kind of see how it's double seeded. So if we look this way, you can see straight lines kind of at that angle. And then if we look this way, you can see the first time we seeded it. So this is just some of the normal yearly maintenance that we're doing right now. And I'll show you exactly what we're doing out here. Like I said, just normal kind of yearly maintenance stuff. So obviously we want to make sure we have air in the tires. And then the other thing I've started doing recently is going through and kind of retorquing all of our bolts because we did have some issues with these guys coming loose and then it kind of wrecks the rim. And then the other thing is making sure our gearboxes have oil. So what we do is we got to just kind of pull this guy off. They're actually a lot tighter. They're not just hand tight type thing. But yeah, we just want to make sure there's some oil coming out of these guys or pretty close to about this point. A simple job for today, however, it is just time consuming. So remember, we have a half a mile long pivot here. So we have 17 of these towers just on one pivot. And then you have to remember, we don't just have one pivot, we have two pivots. So we're down at the south pivot, and we'll still have to do the north pivot as well there too, which means in total we have 34 towers to go through and do all these checks. So it is definitely kind of a job. Like I said, pretty simple, just pretty time consuming. And when you're dealing with this many tires and towers, you always have a couple like this in the spring as well too. So yeah, we don't have a good way of actually airing these things up. So that means I'm gonna have to come out here again with a new tire and rim and get this changed out. And then when I'm in the shop with a little bit better tools, I'll be able to actually change out the tire. But yeah, we always have a couple sets of just tires and rims ready to kind of swap out. We do have some towers that are a little bit quicker because I don't know if you guys can tell, but this is an all plastic tire here. So obviously we can't check the air in this because there is no air in this. However, these ones do have some issues just because they are solid plastic. There's no rubber that flexes. So these ones will actually really build up with mud and then they get stuck pretty easily. So these are not exactly the best design either. I actually prefer the rubber tires over these solid ones. These are nice because you do never have flat tires though. And these ones do work completely fine for people that aren't watering pretty constantly, but around here in Montana, and especially where we're at, we have pretty much unlimited water usage. So yeah, these things just, they don't do great in really muddy conditions. Here's the newest tire design that we've tried out. We tried a couple of these out last year type of thing, and these are big raft tracks. So they're actually tracks that go over the tire. So if you guys look in here, you can see it's just a normal tire that's inside of this thing. And these big tracks just kind of wrap around it, and it helps to give it a little bit more surface area for actually not going as deep in the mud. And these things are one of the best things that we've got to work. However, the only issue we've really had is having tires go flat inside of the tracks itself. So that's one thing I kind of wish we would have got new tires to put in here, because yeah, some of these tires are probably like 20 years old or at least 10 years old type of thing inside of these tracks. So, and it's not super hard to get these apart, but when they're full of mud, these things do not come apart very easily. And actually there is a video sometime last summer when I actually had to take one of these apart when it was out in the field full of mud. While checking this thing over, I found some other stuff that needs fixed, which is these little U-joints, and there's kind of little plastic dampeners inside of there, and you can see this one just got absolutely destroyed. So now we're gonna have to get that fixed as well too, because that is really important, because that's what actually drives our tire. And that one is definitely pretty much done. The weather can change pretty quickly, so I just got done with the south pivot and started on the north pivot. We got peas out here on the entire north pivot, by the way. But if we kind of look over to the west and the north, you can see it's a little bit hazy looking, especially if we kind of look up that way. You can almost see kind of the edge of it there type of thing. But all that haziness is actually from the big fires up in Canada, and it's not too bad here right now, but my sister and brother-in-law's place, they're about an hour to the west of us, and they said it was really bad over there. And it's raining now, and I gotta run back to the yard because I left the windows down on the boss's geo tracker, and I don't think he's gonna like it if that thing gets full of water. So quick pit stop to run back to the house. And I'd asked my boss to do it, but he's actually in town getting a bunch of parts today. So yeah, I'm kind of the only person here again. In goes the last of the spring wheat. Again, maybe we'll see what happens. And the reason I'm just using the conveyor instead of the auger on the Flexicoil there is just because it's a lot simpler using the auger, especially for cleaning out. That's one thing. The Flexicoil hopper is pretty small, so it's not exactly simple for cleaning out corners on the truck. And it's just a lot simpler than starting the tractor up, letting the tractor warm up, then letting the hydraulics warm up as well. So it's just a lot simpler just using the little conveyor here. And today's second big project was the new corral for the steers. So if you guys have been following the channel for a while, you know the steers have a problem of jumping over fences. So we're not actually done with this thing yet, but right now it's pretty tall, and when it's done, it's gonna be about the same height as I am, which is about 6'3". So if the steers end up jumping over a 6'3" fence, they win type of thing. And yeah, they get to go be in the circus or something then. And this is what my uncle was working on yesterday while I was sick. And then actually today, my other uncle came and helped us work on it as well. So a big thank you to my other uncle for coming out and helping today, because I am extremely low on energy after being sick yesterday and not being able to hold down any food all day either. This start to another day, I'm feeling a whole lot better, and we're actually in the New Holland tractor because we're gonna go help the neighbor move some of the bales off of his fields. But first we'll get the bale spike on, then we're gonna head on over that way. Off to go get the bales. It'll just end up being kind of a quick morning job. We always help our neighbors out if we can and have a little spare time. He's trying to farm 1,000 acres by himself, and he's definitely not young, so it's not easy for him. We only have about 17 bales to move, so it shouldn't take too long. This one was actually one of the farthest away ones, and the rest are kind of over across that little field pond in that field over there. Well, I wonder if we're even going to be able to get out to that bale. It is right on the edge of that little field pond there, but we're going to give it a try and see what happens here. We were able to get the bale. Definitely a little bit damp on the bottom. I don't know if you guys could see that, but it is just pouring water out of the bottom of it. Also, the ground is slightly a bit damp there too still, but we did get it, so we're going to go throw it in its own little pile. I don't think I want to stick this one next to all the other dry bales. Well, we got the 17 bales moved for the neighbor there, so I think we're going to be heading back down to the pivot today and working on that. Had to run down to the pivots and had to take the old Ford flatbed here because my pickup's still not fixed yet. But I wanted to check and make sure it was dry enough to work on the pivots because we got a ton of work to do down here. However, we got about 4 new ponds out in the field, so it must just absolutely poured down here the other day when it rained, and just we got, yeah, water holes everywhere. However, in some spots, like here, the ground is actually bone dry again. It must have been one of those rainstorms where it literally just came down so hard it didn't actually have any time to soak into the ground. Seeing as it's too wet to work on the pivots, the boss wanted some new shocks on the tracker here, so that's gonna be the project for this morning. I actually already got one on there. Just gotta get the other one on there. But thankfully this is a pretty simple job, so not gonna take too long. Well, about 5 o'clock on a Friday night, which seems like the best time to start working on this road that goes down to the river bottom. Got a little bit washed out over the winter. Just casually going backwards down a pretty steep hill here. Nothing to see here. Just normal everyday farming stuff. Just kidding. definitely not. Not a bad way to end Friday night. Did a little bit of some work down on the road to the river, and I just had to go help the neighbor out. He was having some issues and needed to get his air cart emptied out. And it's pretty simple because he only lives about a half a mile north of us too, so it's not too far of a drive taking things up there. Fun Saturday morning project. So my uncle was out spraying some peas this morning, and I was actually getting ready to spray the yard out here. However, he came back to the yard with a problem. And that problem was he's dumping coolant on the ground, and I was able to find it actually pretty quickly after getting some covers pulled off here. If you look right there, you can see a little shot of some coolant coming out there. So what happened was this steel pipe, which is still really hot, so I don't want to actually touch it, move it. But yeah, this steel pipe was actually rubbing on the pulley, and it just kind of rubbed a little hole through the pipe here. So gonna have to get a new pipe, and then we're gonna have to figure out some way to kind of hold it over type of thing. And of course that hose is at the bottom of the radiator, so that means we got to get this entire system drained. And while that drains, I'll work on my project that was initially going to be today's project and getting our little sprayer ready to go for in the gator here so we can get all the weeds sprayed around the yard here. However, we need a little power plug in, so we're actually going to steal one off of an old CB radio here. And yeah, we'll just cut this guy off of here and wire it in there, because then that'll just make it a lot simpler. We got that pipe pulled out, and you can see exactly where it got chewed through right there. So like I said, it was just rubbing right against the pulley there. Made a little tiny hole in there. That's what started leaking. Actually, it's pretty close to getting tore out here too. So we're going to try to fix this and see if we can get it to work. Maybe order a new one too if we need to. Not the simplest fix in the world, so it actually ended up being a pretty big hole after I cleaned it all up. So what I ended up having to do was actually taking a little piece of some scrap metal there. I welded that in there first very carefully because it didn't do super well holding water. Ended up with a lot of pinholes and stuff. But then after we welded it, then I came in there with a little brass and we brazed that in there. So hopefully it should be watertight-ish now. And then the main job we were planning for Saturday here is getting these screens in the river. So this is for our irrigation system. And these things actually sit in the river, and that's what kind of keeps all the sand and everything from going into our pivots. And these things are not light. They're about 5 feet tall, and it's a little bit awkward when you're trying to actually carry them in a river. But it is about 80 degrees out today, so it's gonna feel pretty nice hopping in the river and putting those screens in there. 7:30 on a Saturday night, but we did get this thing back together, and we just did a little farm fix on it, and we put a ratchet strap kind of holding it back so that way it doesn't hit the pulley anymore. And we did get the screens put in the river earlier today as well too, so it was good getting that job done and out of the way as well. And not a bad way to end the weekend off here. We got the steers separated finally. I just gave them a little feed on the outside, and the last little one finally got out of here, so it's nice to finally get these guys separated. And they should not be jumping over this fence either. And I know this will be the last clip for the week, so thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys next week.